Um, Welcome. My objective in the next hour or so is to look at what it means to teach negotiation online. And I'm going to use some examples from an online negotiation course that I've just developed at MIT. The particulars are much less important than the underlying pedagogical strategy of teaching negotiation online in what I'm calling an interactive way, and how you make negotiation instruction interactive. And I teach my courses online to a global audience simultaneously. So you can think edX, but you don't have to put it on edX. But the idea is I'm teaching many hundreds of people simultaneously, and they're all in very different places. And so how can you make this work? So I have a 3-week course. And this is a course for scientists and engineers who want to learn about negotiation as a leadership skill, as something they need to lead scientific and technical teams inside a company, across companies, but this is mostly about negotiation as a leadership skill. And so the question is, how do you design a 3-week negotiation course for any group, but my task was for this group in particular. And they're all in different places, taking this course because they want to, not because someone's told them they have to. And I divided the 3 weeks into negotiation, influence, and power. There's nothing special about that. You could divide up the 3 weeks in a different way, but I want the weeks to have beginning, middle, and end for a week, and then beginning, middle, and end for a week. I don't want this to run long, and I want people to have a sense that I finished a piece before I start the next piece. It's not like an academic course where at the end of 12 or 14 weeks you take an exam, and that's when you find out whether you learned the stuff. I'm really trying to make it in smaller pieces. In fact, the whole rule of thumb for me in translating what I've always taught in a classroom or in a training center to online is everything's in little pieces. And you'll see that when I try to construct and build the elements, when I use video elements, I try to work in 6-minute pieces. Maybe I have 2 pieces, so 12 minutes on a subject, but ideally 6 minutes. So what I would normally cover in a 50-minute class session, 6 minutes. And when I try to explain to my colleagues who've never done things online, this is not about putting a camera in front of you while you're teaching in your classroom, making a tape of it, and then running it online. It's not about that. It's about taking what you would do in the classroom, knowing it, then thinking about from the standpoint of a student, how could they learn that in 6 minutes? Everything is from the standpoint of the learner when you're putting things online. Not, as it's usually done, the standpoint of the teacher. I'll tell you what I'm going to say, and however long it takes me, that's how long it takes me. And at the end of it, I'll see whether you heard what I was going to say. This is not how we design online instruction. We say, what do we need to ensure that the learner will learn? And when we ask questions to people like a little quiz after readings. We give the answer after they tried it a bunch of times. We give the correct answer and explain why the others were wrong, and this is the correct answer. We don't just have the questions. You have to assume from the standpoint of the learner, okay, I didn't know. What's the right answer? Why? And that has to be there. So I'm building in some cases, readings and questions. I'm building in video instruction, where I produce a video that explains something. And in that production process, I might make some notes to myself about something I want to teach, and I might have 6 minutes to teach it. I'm probably not going to have more than 8 points I'm going to try to make in that 6 minutes. And so if I'm in the process of producing this, I might have on the teleprompter the 8 points, and they're going at a pace where I got to get to the next one, and if I don't get to all of them, it's going to be more than 6 minutes. So that's the timer, is I'm trying to cover these points. I don't have a script about the things I'm going to say in the sentences about each of those 8 points, because I know roughly what I'm going to try to get across, and I know the material, and so I'm just trying to speak in a normal way, the way I would if I was talking to a student, trying to explain that point. And we take that video of me saying those things, and I try to figure what would be useful animation with my voice left, but my image gone, so that the image is now some graphic, some cartoon-like activity, some sort of animation of that idea. So if I were to be doing something on building coalitions, sources of negotiating power, they read something about it, and I'm getting ready to introduce them to the exercise they're going to do, which I'm going to show you some of, and I want to get them thinking about sources of negotiating power, and I have a point I want to make about it, which is power in negotiation is dynamic. It's not fixed. You can generate sources of power in negotiation regardless of your level of power vis-a-vis the other person away from the table. Could be the boss, and you could be a third level down employee. How do you get power in that negotiation? Well, if you can anticipate, understand all the boss's concerns, interests, needs, values, interests, and you can propose something that meets those while also meeting your interests, that's a source of power, the power of an elegant solution. So I might say on the video, we can talk about 3 sources of power in negotiation. One of them is the power of an elegant solution. So imagine the boss has put you inside a task, and the task has been framed in a way you think is all wrong. But you do not have the power to reframe that, only the boss does. You have 5 minutes to meet with the boss. How are you going to prepare? Do you know what the boss's objectives were in giving you this assignment, what the boss's most important interests are? How can you meet those interests while meeting yours? I just used my minute. But what can I show if my voice is saying that while they're listening to me, which is suddenly a figure appears who's the boss, and suddenly a figure appears that's you, the person listening. And they're stylized graphical figures. And there's endless debates about whether gender should be indicated, culture should be indicated. I don't want robots. What do I want that suggests variability in terms? So there's big debates about what to do about these illustrations. But putting that aside, it might show that the character that is the lower level person is asking a question. What are your interests, boss? And the boss responds by saying, having you finish the task on time. No, what I meant was, why did you give me, and you could see a dialogue happening like a cartoon strip. While I'm talking in the spaces, we use animation so it doesn't add to the time, which is why I have only so few points I can make within my small number of minutes.